Hey, champagne poppers, welcome to the mother freaking podcast. Um,
Hey.
I'm really committed to not swearing, but I have noticed that as we start recording, they just slip out. So sorry, not sorry, but like I'm really trying here. It's just
I
not my
also
personality.
I just have this random cough all of a sudden right before we are recording. So it is what it is.
It's because you're nervous and your throat chakra really shines when you're
Probably.
nervous and uncomfortable. I have
That's
noticed that.
true. That is true. That is probably true. I haven't
It
coughed all
is
day.
true. Every time we talk about like things that make you uncomfortable or that are like uncomfy situations, either recording or personally, you're like, oh my gosh, like my throat. And I'm like,
Well, it is what it is.
it's fine. We all have our issues, right?
Yes.
Um, anyways, everybody, wait, before we dive into the topic, anything new you'd like to report to the people?
No, I don't. No, it's been a week already, and it's only, well, I guess it's almost the end of the week, but no, nothing exciting or mundane or anything has happened.
Yeah, I don't think anything has happened in my life. I feel like I feel really I just need to record a podcast episode about it. I'm going to this weekend. Actually, I keep thinking about it. I'm in the like mom irritation phase where I am irritated with work about being a mom. I'm irritated that I am a mom, and I'm irritated that being a mom takes so much time. So I feel like when I'm really in the like swing of regular work week, I'm like, why the fuck am I a mom? So there will be a podcast episode coming about
I
motherhood.
knew I knew that this is how you were feeling because your story that you posted about pregnant people, which
Oh
was
my
so silly,
gosh.
but I was like, she's definitely going through some mom shit right now.
Well, mostly I'm just irritated that people are pregnant posting so much of their bellies. Like, I'm sorry, when people are really obsessed with being pregnant and then they also get really pregnant, it really bugs me. I don't want to see your skin, your belly skin. I hate it.
What are you talking about, that Peloton instructor?
Yes.
Yeah, she's
But she's not the
excessive.
only one. There's other people that are pregnant that I'm like, anyways, so yeah, I'm just living a regular life, but also I got my period today and I feel like I've been emotional about it because it's one of those months where I feel like my period's making me extra salty and extra emotional and my boobs are extra tender. So it's like
Mm,
one of, you know how every
hate
month is
that.
kind of different where sometimes it's like you don't fully get all the symptoms. This month feels
Hmm.
like every single period symptom is coming my way.
Mm,
And
I
if
hate
I
that.
cry in this episode, that's 90% of why, because I could definitely see that happening at this point. I
Shit.
poked myself in the eye earlier and it hurt so bad that I wanted to just sit on my bed and cry. Like, I don't cry.
Well, you probably cried about your nails yesterday because I would have.
Yeah. If you follow me on Instagram, you're getting a real treat lately. Anyways, so since nothing is happening in the real world besides the feud between Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion, just kidding, but
I
that
mean,
is
honestly,
interesting.
that's about it.
And Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
We can just dive into our episode, which I'm very excited to talk about, and it's basically about relationships and how fucked up they are. Just kidding, they're great. I
And
wore
I
my
guess
shirt with a heart just so I can remember that love goes into relationships. This is why I put this heart on, because like I'll remember that like you're supposed to love relationships.
oh my gosh. I feel like we probably
Uh,
need to give a trigger warning. I'm guessing. I'm still unsure how trigger warnings work, but trigger warning if you don't like talking about relationships or hard things, probably not the episode for you.
Also, if we have to give trigger warnings at this point, I feel like this isn't the podcast for you. I think trigger warnings are freaking propaganda for oversensitive people that can't handle like real conversations. Because nothing that we ever talk about is extreme to the level of like needing a trigger warning, I would say. Like these are regular topics.
I don't know,
So.
man. Some people get comfortable.
Okay, well, if you're getting uncomfortable, then just turn it off. Like you have the power to push pause. I'm not in your face. I'm not. And I don't get it. I don't get it. Anyways, sorry again, salty. I'm on my period. Trigger warning that we will be talking about real life shit.
There we go.
Okay, everybody. Today we want to talk about relationships, and what I think is crazy, if you really think about it, is every single person in your life is a relationship to a certain extent. Like if you really think about it, like my kids are a relationship, people I work with are a relationship, like the freaking person that you know or regularly see, like my hairdresser, that's a relationship, like every single human being that you have contact with regularly is a relationship, and that's actually really wild to think about. Like human beings are just here to like have relationships.
Yeah, it is. It is very strange. Even your relationship with like the person
God.
that delivers your mail. And I say that because my mail person really sucks and we do not have a good relationship because that bitch shoves everything in my mailbox and everything is like bent. That's a
Do you
relationship as well.
do you talk to her?
No, I don't because
Oh,
I'm never there when she delivers. And I wish I was because it makes me really angry that everything is like shoved in there when it doesn't need to be shoved in there.
that's funny.
Literally,
Anyways.
when just let me say one more thing, like how excessive it is. When we got our insurance check for when our carport fell, we got it through the mail, and the bank almost didn't accept it because it got wet. I get my mail every day. It's not like it's sitting in there. It got wet, and then she shoved it in the mailbox so that it was all crinkly, and the bank almost didn't take it. So that's like how bad it is.
Do you report her? Did you know you can report your mail people?
You know, I was going to, and I just haven't. I
You
should
should.
though, because it
You
bothers
should.
me.
That lady needs a performance review, and she should listen to my Cheers to Career series.
100%.
No, you should
100%.
report her. That's actually really terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically every single person or like human being in your life is technically a relationship, including your pets, your animals, that's the thing. But today I only want us to touch base on your relationship with like your spouse or your partner, your friends, and your family, because I think that relationships are so broad that if we don't narrow it down, we will not ever talk about anything substantive.
I
Because like
agree.
honestly, every relationship truly is so like you can hear it just by talking about this Mel lady that she's never actually talked to. Like each relationship is so complex, it's deep. There's emotions tied to any relationship that you have. Like it's so weird if you think about it to that level. And it's basically a roller coaster, like you're on an emotional roller coaster all of the freaking time with yourself, anything. Like your
Hmm.
relationships are actually so significant in our lives, and it's so weird when I like started prepping for this. I was like, damn, I never thought about that. Like relationships are at the core of your every single day life.
Everything. Yep.
It's
Yep.
so weird.
Yeah.
So before we like dive too far into like spouse and partners, I think we should chat about friends and family first, because I personally don't have a ton to say about them. I think we touch on friends a lot in like regular episodes of different topics
Hmm.
anyways. So I think we should start there and then kind of like move to our actual spouse or partner relationships, because that shit's deep.
Yes, I agree. What I want to say about friends and family is I have a very hard time distinguishing who is friends and who is family because I see them as one mutual thing for the most part. Like my really close friends, like Shelby, I see her as a sister rather than a friend. Like, so it's really hard when, like, if there's something going on with my family or something going on with my friends, I have a hard time figuring out what side of the line I'm going to walk on or how I'm going to navigate that because I see them as such a close cohesive unit, if that makes sense.
That's actually very interesting to me. I'm so intrigued by this. I actually have never thought of that. And it's really true. Like, I don't, well, I mostly don't have this because I don't really have family relationships. So, like, every friend that is like close to me really is like my family. But, like, I've never really thought about how that works. And now that you say that, like, I totally can see that in like how your like life goes. How
Hmm.
weird.
Yeah, and it makes it hard because me and my family are very, very close. But sometimes when you're too close to your family, there are little things that they do irritate you. And so then, like, it's a lot easier to like take a break from your family rather than your friends. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm even making sense, but there is just something about blood related family and like friend family that like it sometimes makes it really hard. And sometimes that line gets very blurred when you're very close to your friends and you're very close to your family, if that makes sense.
I think for me, what's challenging for me is I have extreme boundaries, I think, when it comes to friends and family. Like they're they're extreme. Like they're very like, I don't care which side you fall on. If you're being an ass, you're an ass. Like I don't care which side of you're falling on. Like when it comes to like the actual partner thing, like Wally can do a million things, cross a million boundaries. And that one I will allow and I'll deal with it and I'll try and figure it out. But when it comes to like friends and family, I feel like I'm pretty rigid and I think it's actually kind of stressful sometimes for other people because they know that like I'm no bullshit. Like you fuck up, I'll give you a pass. You fuck up again, things might get a little weird. And then you fuck up for a third time and like I'm done. I'm out. I don't care where you
Mhm.
fall. Like if Taylor was fucked up 3 times, she like that's a long time. We've been friends for a long time. But like you
Damn,
are
what is my
family.
score right now?
I don't, maybe I actually, this is so toxic that I'm
Oh
about to say
no.
this.
What is it?
This is so toxic. I actually think that you're in the same category as Wally, where like you can do no wrong.
Okay, good. I'm good then. I was like, shit,
Like,
is my score 0? Is it 2? Like, do I only have one more
no,
chance?
like I honestly think that like you probably have like a lot of chances because I value you the same way that I value like my relationship with Wally, you know, like that those two are like non-negotiables. Hopefully you feel the same.
Yeah, I
Sweating now that I just admitted how obsessed I am.
do.
But
um,
all jokes aside, I think boundaries are a huge thing with friends and family specifically. I don't think a lot of people are capable of having them, especially with family and especially with like certain friends. I've seen like some pretty crazy friendships and I've also seen some pretty crazy family relationships. But like to me, boundaries is probably why I don't have like this hard like conversation that you have in your head with the
mhm.
either side, you know, because it's like I think my boundaries are really extreme.
Yeah, I have very lax boundaries, I'll be completely honest. That is actually something that I definitely do need to work on in both friends and family is I need to figure out what boundaries are that are needed and stick with them because my boundaries are honestly
They're
pretty much
fluid.
non-existent in a lot of cases. And so which it's interesting because what my dad is the only person in my family that I've ever held boundaries with. And it was so, and I think that's why I've had such a hard time with his passing is because I don't know how to deal with the fact that I was comfortable with the boundaries and I kept them, but like I feel like I'm being rude or something. But my dad was the only one in my whole family that I've ever kept boundaries with.
I honestly think like with your dad, he was so his relationship and the way he treated people, but even not even just like you and your family, like any regular human being, like he was just visibly a bit toxic because he had like there's so much going on within himself, you know?
Mhm.
But I think for you, like watching those types of things happen so visibly and like the hurt that can happen so like you watch him hurt strangers and people you love and even yourself. I think it
Mhm.
was like really easy for you to be like, you're a fucking ass like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And I think it just made you be like, I can't be around this. Like it was hurting you more to even like be around it. And so
Mhm.
like when you I've noticed with you specifically, like when people truly are like crossing the line, like you have zero bullshit. Like you're like, no, this is not okay. But but you also weren't super close with him either, you know? So like
Mhm.
when you're close with people, it's easier to not have that boundary.
Yeah.
Um, one of the things that I think is interesting when it comes to like friendships and family is like I've noticed that like each person has a unique situation when it comes to friends and family. Like if you really trace things back, like every family has like a different dynamic. Every friendship has
Hmm.
a different dynamic. And some people grow up like only attaching to their friends because that's all they had. And they're like friends since high school and like they go through a lot of stuff, or there's like super close families and they stay super close together and like you can never screw them over, and like family till the day you die. Like every person has such different viewpoints when it comes to friends and family, and it's so hard to understand like what should I do? How do I navigate this? Like, and I think the biggest thing for me that I would like say has helped me is like what am I personally okay with? Like what's my internal self saying like this is acceptable, this is not acceptable, who do I want to be around? And I kind of said something about this in our last episode where I was like, I've just always known like what I want in my life and what kind of feelings I want in my life, and I like chase that. That's like what drives me. And it's like if people are making me feel uncomfortable or they're like being rude or they're making me sad, like why would I stay around sad people that make me feel like shit,
Hmm.
you know? Like, but I think it's really hard for people to find that and have that strength. And I think that's the biggest tip I would give people is like, if you don't actually like going to these things or people make you feel like shit, like you gotta like you have to find the willpower. Otherwise, you need to acknowledge I'm actively signing up to deal with their bullshit and I can't complain. Like you don't get to
Hmm.
complain if you're choosing to sign up for it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like for me, it's just like I always see the good in people. That is just naturally my personality. And it takes a lot for me to snap. But once I snap, it's really hard to come back from that. And I hate when I get to that point. But I would just it's much easier to just like see the good in the person, forgive and forget, even if you don't get the apology, and just be like, I appreciate and love spending time with this person. And so that's what I'm going to do, and just like let all of that go. Is that the most healthy approach? Probably not in some cases, but maybe so in some other cases. So it's just like for me, finding that balance of like, how much do I value this relationship with this person and how far do I push it? But there are those instances that I I get pushed too far and I'm over it.
Yeah, I think like one of the things that's been interesting for me to discover as I've like grown up and stuff is like until I really feel like people aren't, I don't know how I would explain it. Like if they don't have good intent or they're not showing up, they're not supportive, they're not loving, like if it's not good energy, I I like I really have like an instant red flag where I'm like, I don't like this. This feels unsafe. And I don't know if it's from like my childhood and growing up and like feeling unsafe and all of these different things, but like I don't want what's the word that you use that I hate?
Inner child.
Inner child. My inner child comes out when I'm like, I am not going to let this person, I'm not going to get attached to somebody and then let them abandon me. So, like, if I notice quickly that they are not good, not safe, not supportive, not loving, like all of these things, it's like, I don't need to waste my time on that because they're already showing up as like not the best version of themselves. And I don't have time for these like lower vibrations. I only want high vibrations because I'm saving myself from the shit I grew up in, you know, like where people just leave you. So I think that's
Um,
probably helped me with that a lot, like helped me keep people
mhm.
from doing that to me over and over again.
As somebody who has done some severe inner child work these last few months through EMDR therapy and as a psychology major, that's 100% your inner child wounds.
I don't need you to validate what I already just said as a
I'm
fact.
kidding. I'm kidding.
Just kidding.
No, but for real, I've been doing like maybe severe is not the right word, but a lot of inner child work that's just naturally come up through EMDR therapy. And it is so wild the way that your childhood shapes your future self.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's seriously the most wild thing. Like that's another reason why I'm rereading that Glow in the Fucking Dark book. And you'll see when you get to like the last chapter, she talks about like her future self. And it just like really made me think because I forgot or didn't choose to remember so much stuff that happened in my childhood. And then as it comes up, I'm like, that's why I act this way. This is why I have this pattern. Like It's just very interesting to see how everything you do and every relationship you have, how that shapes your future self. It's very
Yeah.
strange.
I think for sure because I live in like my mind a lot and I'm always trying to unravel like why this happened, why that happened. I'm always trying to connect puzzle pieces. I've been very fortunate to figure things out a lot easier and quicker than other
Mm-hmm.
people. But the problem with that is it makes me very closed off. It makes me very quiet. It makes me very like hesitant. It makes me not open to people. Like I'm not open to just have new friendships and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the things that's so crazy to me is with friendships. Like you really build and go through so many different friendships. Like I've had so many different friend groups. If you really think about like all the different people that have come into your life, and you can sit there and like be like, damn, it's so sad that this friendship didn't work out or like this person's not in my life. But like when you stop and think about like how your life was at the time or what things were happening at the time, if you really look at it, most of the time the friendships that are not there anymore, it's actually a really good thing that they're not there. Like there
Mm-hmm.
were parts of you that were not your best self, or there were things that were happening because you were doing certain things with a friend that put you in situations that you probably don't actually want to be in or didn't want to be in. And you can look back and be like, wow, we were pretty toxic or we were doing dumb shit. And that's not who I wanted to be, like those types of things. And I think it's really important for you to acknowledge and honor those and not beat yourself up or feel like sad or upset or hurt. Like it's okay to feel hurt for a while, but at some point you
Mm-hmm.
need to acknowledge like this was a chapter in my life and it brought me a different person, a different relationship. Like I have friends right now that I wouldn't really consider them friends. They're probably still on my social media. I don't actually want them to be sometimes, but it's like I don't know how to like cut them out. It feels like a really dickish move. But like had I not been in a friendship with them, I wouldn't have met Taylor or I wouldn't have met other people. And so it's like I can sit and be like, God, that was so fucked up. Or I can be like, it served its purpose. We go through cycles with people. That's actually like proven that you'll have cycles with people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay that that chapter ended and it brought something. It taught you a lesson. It brought something else. It put you on a different path. Like if you really look at it, like it seems like you should probably get high when you do this because that's how it feels when you really break it down,
It
like
does. Yeah, it does.
it's a whole journey and there's beauty in it, or you can sit
Mm-hmm.
and just be like, I fucked up, or you can have guilt, shame, sadness, all of those things. Those aren't serving you. But I think it's important to acknowledge that like it's okay to grow out of friendships. It's okay
Mm-hmm.
for them to have chapters, and it's the same for family members. Like it's okay that you choose your family. You don't have to just because you're blood, like you do not have to be in their life. And they don't get permission to be in your life just because they're blood. Like that's something that I think is super toxic that has happened for like years and years for people is like just because you're family, it gives them like this title that they're allowed to like fuck you over whenever they want. And to me, that's just unacceptable.
Yeah, I cannot tell you. I think I mentioned this before, but how many times I had people telling me when I wasn't talking to my dad after he got diagnosed with ALS, there were so many people that were like, "But he's your dad and he's dying and he has a terminal illness." And it doesn't excuse the behavior if it's not serving you. And I agree. I think that every person is placed in your life for a reason. And I have nothing but beautiful memories with friends that aren't friends anymore. Like, yeah, there was definitely toxic behaviors. There was definitely horrible things that happened. I choose not to spend so much time on those and look back on them and be like, my best friend in high school, I would have never made it through high school without her. We tried to be friends
Mhm.
again in our 20s, didn't work out, and that's okay. I wish her nothing but the best. And I literally had the best high school experience because of her. My friend in my early 20s that we had a huge falling out a few years ago, I wouldn't want anybody else in that moment of those early 20s. Like we had a great time and that was beautiful. Will we ever be friends again? Absolutely the fuck not. But like it just everybody serves a purpose for you, and I love that I can look back on that and be like, wow, I have really great memories with this person. I hope that they're doing well, wish them the best. They don't need to be a part of my life anymore.
Well, and I think that's what's super important to highlight, especially when you're like having moments where you're reflecting on it or having shame or guilt or sadness about it, is like, just like you're saying, like, they served a purpose. You
Mm-hmm.
felt like you couldn't have gotten through a situation without them. My sister and her girlfriend, like that's a true example. Like I was best friends with this girl, and I would not have made it through raising Jaden those first couple of years had I not met her. Like she truly, she she brought some toxic bullshit into my life. That's a fact. There's negative parts of it for sure. But there's also these pieces where like I still long and miss our friendship all the time. And you're going to go through those phases. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, like I miss this feeling. I miss having this person. I miss whatever it is that was like good about it. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to miss those things. And then you also have to be like, but I know better now. I know that this can never like I I'm willing to bet most friendships that have like a falling out are not ever going to go back together the way that they were or to a better place. I truly believe that with
Mm-hmm.
friendships. Marriages, I do feel a little bit different. Sometimes I think that big things happen and it can bring people together. Like you and Tony are a direct example of that, you know. I
Mm-hmm.
think marriage is a little bit different, but friendships and even family, I don't think family you can ever like from big things family wounds cut different and friend wounds cut different. They truly, truly do. And maybe it's the intimacy aspect with like a spouse that changes that to where it's like you can have like a beautiful thing come from it. But I would dare say, I don't even know if there's stats with this, but I would bet there are. Like when you try and bring a friendship back, it will never be that way. So don't look at like the good parts and be like, maybe I should give them another chance. Maybe like put my boundary down and maybe it's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
okay. Like you will get fucked over and you will be upset that you went and wasted your time again. Like it's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
But it's true,
Yeah.
like people get you through situations and they help you and they make beautiful memories and you will always have like fun memories and you will long for that and you will long for those feelings. But like you can't risk it. You just can't put yourself back in those situations. And like one of the things that helped me because that was like a really traumatic falling out. I've had a couple traumatic friend fallouts for sure. That
Mm-hmm.
one with my sister and her girlfriend was truly like a huge, huge hit. And one thing that really helped me like have peace was like accepting I could not have made it raising Jaden without her. Like
Mm-hmm.
there was a beautiful piece of that.
Yeah.
The second one was like maybe this was exactly what my sister needed. And like I was part of helping them connect. And like that's what I used to like kind of unleash like the guilt and the sadness and all of those sad things is just like accepting the good, realizing what benefited from it, I guess, and like letting it go. And like you truly do have to just be like, all right, I have made peace with this. I have learned when you acknowledge things like that and then say like I'm making peace with this and you like verbally say like I'm making peace with this, you really do start to like stop thinking about it. It's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
I remember driving in my car like on a road and it was like by passing her house and I literally was like thinking about it and I was like, God, this is so fucked up. Like, what am I gonna do? And then I like had this moment, I thought about it and I was just like, I'm at peace with this situation. Like my life is better still to this day without it. It's going to be okay. And I thought about all those good things. And I literally in my car by myself said, I'm making peace with this. This is a good thing. And I like,
Mm-hmm.
I swear to God, after that point, I barely thought about it. It was like my heart was just like, okay, we're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
It was so weird.
I think a lot of it has to do because I'm learning also, in addition to the inner child stuff, a lot about grief. And the other night, when I was like on TikTok, there's this girl on TikTok that like writes these poems and reads them. And she's beautiful. Like she just has the most beautiful poems. But there was this one about like nostalgia. And I'll have to post it because it really is such a good poem. And it was just about like appreciating the life that you've had, appreciating the relationships that you've had, and like how sometimes that really hurts. Like you think back about it, and sometimes it's like, oh, I wish even for just like a few hours I could go back and like relive this. And so I think that there's just like a certain aspect of grief that like it's okay if some days you do feel sad about it. There are definitely some days that I'm like, oh, I wish I could go back to being 20 years old and sneaking alcohol into the bar or into the bathroom at the non-alcohol underage bar. Like there
Bitch,
are
we still do
definitely
that.
I was only 20 though, but at Studio 600. But you know, there are those definite moments that my heart does feel sad for that, and I think that that's okay to like grieve what you had, and grief comes up at different moments and at different times for different reasons. And I definitely have had those moments of grief, that even with my dad, that like I miss him. And it just, I don't know, it's very interesting. I'm going to have to do a podcast episode one day all about grief, because it's a very, very interesting concept to think about, how we have it in all different aspects of our life.
For sure. I think one of the things that I would also want to add about like friendships and family is like it's really important to notice when they're toxic. Like I mean, I guess if you're not someone that gives a fuck about, God, I really gotta stop swearing. I'm so sorry, everybody. Jesus, please forgive me. Um,
Jesus, please.
I it's so funny. This is so off topic, but like I don't, I grew up Mormon. I don't practice any ounce of Mormonism. And I still all the time, I'm like, bless up, Jesus, thank you. Like, I don't even know if I believe in God. Like, and here I am going back to my roots all the time of like, I mean, it's ingrained in you. Anyways, off
Yeah.
topic. Anyways, it's important to notice when it's toxic. And I guess if you aren't somebody that really values yourself or your life and you want to live in a toxic cycle and have a sad, miserable life, that's great. You definitely aren't listening to our podcast or supporting it, because we wouldn't be talking about any of those things. Like I know people like that they just live in the suck. So if you're one of those people, don't think you're listening, but if you are, you either want better or you don't. So I'll leave that at that. But if you notice toxic behaviors in family or friends, like it's really important for you to start looking at that. Like, what are you actually okay with? Like, there's been multiple friendships where I start to be like, oh, okay, this is not working for me. This is feeling uncomfortable. I don't like this. Like, you need to define what values you have for a relationship. I actually wrote that as like a requirement. I was actually going to talk about it more on the like spouse partner relationship side, but like I think it's important in any, really all of this applies to friends, family, and like your spouse, to be honest, but it's important to decide what your requirements are in a relationship. Like it's important for me that Taylor shows up. It's important to me that she's supportive. It's important to me that I can have open communication with her. Any friends that come into my life, it's 1000% a requirement that they're open and genuine and honest. If you are not, like, you'll be pushed to my DCE group, like somewhere to where it's like, I'm okay seeing you and hanging out with you socially. Like, I like you, I don't hate you, but you're not in my A group. To be in my A group, like you have to be like 100% in, authentic, true, honest, respectful. Like all of these things are requirements for me. So I think if you don't have those, you should start there. You should really decide like, what requirements do I have out of friends? What requirements do I have out of my family? And if you're noticing toxic behaviors and you're noticing things that make you feel like shit, it is up to you to change that. Like it truly comes down to that. Like you have to define what that looks like. And if you're okay being treated like shit, then be okay being treated like shit. The other thing I feel like I would add when it comes to like the friends in your life and like giving them advice, or like when you're noticing them going through things like this and you like want to help them, like you cannot make anyone make a decision. Like I recently had someone say to me like, oh yeah, you shouldn't have this person in your life, and I just kind of sat there for a second of like, who are you to tell me that I shouldn't do this? Like in my mind I really thought like, how, who, what makes you think that you should say this to me? And like I think it really comes down to this thing of like, you can't make anyone decide who they're in a relationship with, and you can't make anyone decide who's right and wrong. It comes down, it's like a drug addict. You can't
Mhm.
make them stop doing drugs. It takes that drug addict being like, I want something else, I want help, I want to change. So you can give them advice, you can give them support, but you cannot make somebody make those decisions.
I totally agree with that. And sometimes giving love and giving support can be at a distance. It doesn't have to be something directly, like my friend from high school, for example. We're friends on Instagram. I see her stuff and I send her that love, send her that support. But do we talk ever? No, we never do. Never ever talk. But I think that you can give love, you can give support to people from a complete distance without them even knowing that you're doing it.
Yeah. And another thing that I think I would add, I've seen some friends, I had some friends back in the day, they're not in my friend group anymore, but I had some friends that like their family was everything. Their family they did every single thing with their family, and anything that we did as friends was with their family. And to me, it was really hard for me to watch because I would then be the friend getting the information that like they're so pissed, like they want some space, they want this freedom, they don't want to do everything, but then their mom is guilting them into this situation. And like honestly, it was really hard to watch. It was hard because it's like you start to like their parents because you're like, damn, their parents are fun, but then you're also
Mhm.
hearing how hard it is on the kid and them not understanding like I need to have a boundary and the parent doesn't have a boundary and the kid doesn't have a boundary. And then we eventually just stopped being friends because it's like every single thing that we did was your entire family. And it's weird because now I start like looking at my life sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, all my friends are friends with my sisters. Like, am I doing the same thing? And maybe I am. Maybe it's like just a normal thing when you have family. I don't know. But it was really hard for me to watch because they weren't able to have their own identity. They weren't able to do things like it was back in my crafting days. We weren't allowed to have a craft day and not invite the mom. The mom would lose her shit, like make her feel like total shit. And it was really, really sad. And she would be so frustrated and you can tell it was impacting her. And then it made it to the point where like we couldn't even hang out because then her mother-in-law also had to come. And it was like two moms and me and her, and it was just kind of like this is fucking weird, like we can't even be ourselves, we can't even be friends. So if you can't be your
Mhm.
own self, if you're in a friendship, because I've had friendships that also don't want you to be friends with other people, if you have friends or family that do not want you to have your own identity, you need to do something about it. Like unless again you're one of those people that just doesn't want to do shit with yourself, that's fine. But like
Yeah.
if you can't be yourself with a friend or your family, like you have to do something.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Let's see if I have any other notes that I wanted to say about friends and family. Basically, the last thing I want to say is you can pick every single person you have in your life. They don't have to be blood. You can decide who your family is. You get to choose who you love and who your family is.
I
And
agree
that's it
with
on
that
friends and family for
100%.
me. All right, everybody, we are going to end this topic here for now. We are going to split this into 2 episodes. We just have way more to talk about. And we don't want to chat your little ears off this Wednesday or whatever day you plan to listen to it. So we will be splitting this into 2 episodes. The next one will be covering relationships with your partner or spouse. So, yeah, stay tuned for part 2. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you are not following us on Instagram, please make sure that you follow us there. And then also, if you have not liked and subscribed to us where you listen to your podcast, please also go and do that. And then if you have it within your cute little hearts, please leave us a written review so that we can move the toxic negative reviews away from the main page. That would be lovely. Anyways, have a great week and we'll see you next time.